What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Playmates Godzilla x Kong unboxing / review. Today, you know what we're here for. You saw the title and the thumbnail. We are looking at the 2-inch figures. Now, these figures are incredibly cheap, meaning they should be quite affordable. And where can you find them? Probably in the US, you're gonna find them at Five Below, Walmart, or Target. What about Canada? Well, you can get some of these 2-inch figures in the form of those mystery crystals, which I have already done a video on a couple days ago. So if you want to check that out, click the link in the description or in the end screen or on one of the cards. Those crystals contain these exact identical 2-inch figures. Only 4 of them though, because we have a lot more here than just those 4. I have bought the entire set here. Obviously, I just have Godzilla out at the moment. And let me show you everything we'll be looking at. And we will be taking a look at them individually. And so let me give you an idea of what's there first. So starting off, of course, we have our Godzilla Evolved one right here. Then we have Kong with the Beast Glove. And then we have Skar King. Now, these 3 were included in the mystery crystals, and you can get those mystery crystals at GameStop at the moment if you're in Canada, and so that is how you can get these ones. So when I did that video, I didn't exactly go through the figures in full detail. I just opened it and just left it as that because I wanted to save it for this video to take a closer in-depth look at the figures. That's why I was very vague on it in that crystal opening video. So we will be looking at these ones now. There's actually 4 figures included in those crystals. One of them is the spoiler monster. Now is my time to tell you guys that this video will contain a spoiler bit at the very end. So rest assured you can watch through the rest of this video and I will have a timestamp ready to go to let you know in the description when the spoiler bit begins. It will be at the very end of this video, so you have the entirety of this video to enjoy spoiler free, and then you can click off when we get to that section. So, there you go. There's your warning. But that spoiler monster is included on the Hollow Earth Crystals list. So it's these 3 plus the spoiler monster, but we're just going to look at these 3 for the time being. But it's obviously more than just these 3. I just showed off the ones that are included in the crystals first. But there's a lot more outside, which is exactly why people should be encouraged to buy these figures more than the crystals. Let me show you. There's another Godzilla. This is the regular Godzilla, or old Godzilla before he becomes pink. Then we have another Kong. This Kong does not have the Beast Glove. I'm surprised they didn't give him the Battle Axe, but this is just Kong as himself. We have some new faces. We got Suko right here, the young orangutan. Then we have another new character here, Wart Dog. They don't even have a regular 6-inch figure or any other figure for this specific Titan. Only this. That's definitely gonna be an interesting one to look at. And of course, last but definitely not least, the man, the myth, everyone's favorite, the bloody legend himself, Doug. I have not included the spoiler monster, but we have currently 8 figures to look at. Plenty to look at before we get into the spoiler monster. So, let's get started. Why don't we take a look at the 3 first that are included from the Hollow Earth Crystals, which is of course these 3. Which one do I want to do first though? Why don't we start off the main man himself, Godzilla Evolved. Let's do this. Here's our first look at Godzilla Evolved. Like I've mentioned many times, you can get this very figure from the Hollow Earth Crystals. Very minimal packaging, of course. These are meant to be super cheap figures, so they just put it in a little plastic thing with a cardboard sheet around it, and that's about it. They did the same thing with those Godzilla vs. Kong minifigures. I'm just gonna call these as minifigures, and it's the exact same concept here. Very simple, minimal packaging, and I hope the cost won't be that much if they're keeping it this simple. Info on the back, you wanna take a look, you may pause the video to do so. I'm not gonna waste my time because we want to get right into the figure. So, let's open this, shall we? Alright, so why don't we take a look at Godzilla here. Now, this is the exact same Godzilla you can get from the Hollow Earth Crystal. This is one of the 4 you can pull out. So, I have seen this already, I've held this already, but now we can really take a proper in-depth look at it. My first comment on this is that his head is so tiny. Look at this guy. His head is incredibly tiny. I do wish his head was a little bit bigger, but given with the nature of his design, I guess it makes sense why they had to make it like that. His dorsal plates are pretty nice. Obviously, we got the pink theme going on here. And for some reason, this small figure was able to accomplish something the 6-inch figure didn't. Unity of colors. I've been very vocal about it. And for this one's case, the dorsal plates are pink. They remain pink. They ain't transparent. But they're able to carry it on to the tail pretty well. Now the tail is obviously a lot shorter in order to make this figure small enough to fit in the box, but it still does its job, and it still has some neat details at the end. For example, you got the spikes at the end of the tail, like the Ankylosaurus from Jurassic World, and then you just have, you know, the simple hands, very tall legs. Also, Godzilla is a lot skinnier this time around. Arms being a lot tinier. I honestly thought it would be a lot longer. And they don't have the elbow crystal at the end. I guess they will snap off quite easily, so that's why they didn't do it. I think that's fine. But overall, as a tiny little minifigure here, it's not bad. I just think the head looks a bit goofy. If you can actually see his face, if the camera can actually pick up his face, yeah, that is a very goofy looking face. I don't know, not really my favorite, but it's okay for a small little minifigure like this. So out of 10, what will I give the Godzilla? I'd say I'll give it a 6 out of 10. You know, even as a small figure, you can do a lot with it, and you'll see as you go through the other figures, there are some really good ones from the set. Unfortunately, this one doesn't do it. Let's move on to the next one. Next up is another one you can get from the crystals, Kong with the Beast Glove. This one is very simply a Kong with the Infinity Gauntlets. And of course, if you don't want to gamble the crystal and have a chance of getting Kong rather than a guaranteed chance, you can always, of course, get this so you can guaranteed get Kong. Here's the package if you any last looks you want to look at, because now let's get him out. I want to get right into it, so let's do this. And the figure is out. Kong with Beast Glove. Once again, I saw this already from the Hollow of Crystals, but now we get to see a proper in-depth look at him. And the thing is, this Kong, the one thing I don't like about him is probably the face. But everything else is pretty solid. The Beast Glove itself is pretty good. They didn't do any printings of any like letters or symbols on the glove itself, but that's okay. Because this is a small figure, I guess the budget was a lot smaller on this. You can still see scratch marks on his chest though, so that's a plus. There is some form of detail. Unfortunately, this figure is quite small, so I do need to keep my hand in the back to keep it in focus. Once the camera really picks up the detail of this figure, you can see the fur is still there. They still maintain texture. There's still good textures within. And of course, the color is very minimal. You know, Kong doesn't require a lot of coloring. But the Beast Glove is really the selling point, honestly. It looks pretty good. You know, with no articulation, none of that, you gotta look at this as just a mini collectible. I can't even say this is a toy. This is really much more of a collectible. So out of 10, what would I give this Kong? I would say a solid 7 out of 10. I think even for a tiny little figure like this, you can very much make the head look a lot better. At least not, okay, maybe better is a bit harsh. I'm saying maybe more like, give him a facial expression. Be a little bit more detailed. I don't think it hurts to be a little more detailed. For one, give him eyeballs. That's already a great start. And if you compare him with Godzilla, yeah, both of them lack in the head face department. Godzilla really had it worse though, so I would say Kong is definitely a lot better in this scenario. But that is the Kong with the Beast Glove. Now, obviously there's the other Kong, but as I mentioned, I want to go through everything included in the crystals first, except for the spoiler monsters. So that means we're gonna look at Skar King first before we look at the other Kong. So let me put away Kong and let's take a look at Skar King. All right, for Skar King here, pretty neat box as well. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. There you go. Let me flip it around in case you wanna pause, read any of the stuff on it, because now we're gonna just get right to it. We ain't gonna waste no time. Let's get right into it. Alright, and Skar King is out. Of course, same one you can get from the crystals. And this one's actually pretty detailed. He's got the whiplash around him. and that actually adds to the detail of him quite well. Now, I praised the 6-inch figure quite well because of the coloring. I said the color was mixed really well, and he does remind me of that goji berry red color. But most importantly, there's fading with some of the white and gray bits, and it looks like they were able to accomplish that too with this tiny little figure here. And even with the whiplash, there's some good detail going on. So I think they've actually nailed the Skar King here pretty well. I was quite impressed when I got this figure from the crystals. I was like, this is not bad for a tiny scale version of the character. The only thing I would complain about is, of course, the face. It's the same problem as Godzilla and Kong. The face needs a little bit of a touch. He just has no eyeballs. There's no livelihood on that face. It looks so emotionless. So the face, again, needs a bit of work. But for a small scale, tiny figure like this, it's pretty good. Now, is it as big as Kong? He's actually taller than Kong. So this is something they were able to accomplish with the tiny figures. Better than the 6-inch figures, because the 6-inch figures, as you probably will have noticed, Skar King is very tiny. He is skinnier and shorter than Kong. And it looks like they were able to accomplish that here with the 2 inches. Who would have thought the tiny figures would actually be more scale accurate? But out of 10, what do I give this Skar King? I would say out of 10, I'll definitely give it an 8. Frankly speaking, I actually think I like the spoiler monster the best out of the crystals. But between these 3, I would say Skar King was definitely the most well done. And Kong, not far behind, and unfortunately, Godzilla falls at last place. But if these 3 were the ones you want, plus a spoiler monster, then the crystals should get you covered. But now, we're going to move on to some of the stuff you cannot get from the crystals. You can only get from these specific packs. Starting off with the other Godzilla. So, let's get right to it. This is the other Godzilla, old Godzilla, before he gets evolved. Frankly speaking, I'm actually quite excited to take a look at this one. I obviously haven't seen this one before. He wasn't in the crystals, so let's get right into it. Oh, before I open it though, let me show you the packaging, just in case you want to see anything. There you go. And then the back side, pause the video of course if you want to read it. I'm pretty sure it's the same info. So I don't even know what you want to find it that will be intriguing on it, because I don't think there is. Let's just get right into it. Okay, so you will notice the biggest difference in size. When you put these 2 side by side against each other, there you go. You can really see that, yeah, he's gotten a lot skinnier. His entire stature is completely different. Even the color of his skin is different. Right off the get-go, I can already say I much prefer the old one. As much as I want to see the new pink evolved version and actually like it, this specific situation with these 2 tiny figures, the old one does it a lot better, I would say. In fact, I think this one is actually better than from the Godzilla vs. Kong figure. This actually might be better than that older figure, which I don't have anymore, unfortunately, so I can't really do that comparison. But looking at this, you can see the old dorsal plates. It's pretty nice. There's a bit of blue fading a little bit into black at the tip. And of course, they're able to capture the texture on the skin pretty well, and that's something they were able to exceed no matter the scale. Even this tiny version, they were able to do it. The tail is a bit shortened, of course, but was still able to look pretty decent. And most importantly, I know it's so tiny you can barely pick it up, but the face was actually not bad. His eyes are blue. There's no heat ray, of course, to show, but it clearly shows he's about to charge up to shoot the heat ray. This is a pretty good Godzilla for its tiny stature. They were able to actually do him quite well, and I think between him and Godzilla Evolved, I just think old Godzilla in this situation worked a lot better, looks a lot better. He just looks so tall and skinny here, which I guess is good, but you just have the more bigger, chunkier look that you get from the old one here. Out of 10, maybe I'll give him a 9. Pretty solid. I honestly can't find any faults with this one. Maybe continue the blue all the way to the tip of his tail. Not just on his main dorsal plate, all the way to the tail would do the trick. But a solid Godzilla miniature figure, to say the least. Now, because we got Godzilla done, why don't we get the other Kong? This is the other Kong. It's not too big of a difference from the Beast Club one, so let's just get this one out of the way. So let's do it. All right, so what do we got for Kong? Obviously, this is one where he is missing his beast glove. So let's just get right into it. Let's open this up, take the figure out, take a closer look. Kong as himself, no beast glove. He is about to hit the ground, or he's, doing jumping jacks, or he's, throwing his hands up at a DJ festival or something. Clearly, this Kong is in a different pose, and let's take a look at the face. Has the face improved from the other one? I think it has a little bit. Maybe some eyeballs would, of course, do the trick. It's always the eyeballs that gives a lot more emotion to a face. But this is about the same Kong you'd expect. He's got the scratch marks on the chest, of course, and it's the same with the texture. You got the fur going on, which is not bad, but let's compare him with the one with Beast Glove. As you can see, the Beast Glove obviously is the most notable difference, but it's also the face. He's roaring with the Beast Glove. Here, he's not. He's just snarling, pretty much. But is the colors the same? I think it is. I would say the Beast Glove one's a little bit darker, but there's more shininess to this one with the no Beast Glove one. I don't know if you can pick it up on camera well, but I'm looking at this obviously with my own eyes, and I can say that there's a glossiness happening with the other one here, the non-Beast Glove one. Between normal Kong and Beast Glove Kong, which one do I say looks better? I think it's quite 50-50. Each has their own strengths and weaknesses, but both share the same problem as, of course, the face. Just give eyeballs. The eyeballs already makes all the difference. But this Kong is okay. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's a pretty standard Kong. This is the Kong you can easily get from Godzilla vs. Kong, but it's in this movie. I definitely think this is a lot better than the older Kong from Godzilla vs. Kong. That's for sure. So out of 10, we'll just call this Smashing Kong. What would I give this Kong? Maybe we'll say a 8 out of 10 as well, just like the Godzilla. It's pretty solid, but there's nothing too much. It's quite expected. There's nothing new or exciting about it, but it's pretty good, to say the least. So let's move on to the next figure. I actually want to look at the new character, one I don't have yet. The Wart Dog. Let's do it. Let's take a look at the new guy. The Wart Dog, a new monster that will be in the movie and a new monster to the MonsterVerse as a whole. Playmates has not done any other figures for this specific character. They've only done it as this 2-inch. Maybe in the future they might do a 6-inch figure. I doubt there'll be a Battle Roar figure, and I definitely doubt there's gonna be a giant figure. So this may be the only version of the Wart Dog we'll be getting. But frankly speaking, I think it's better to have one thing than not at all. So I'll happily take this. So before we open up the package, here's one last look. Sick, you've seen it. Let's get right into it. Looking at this new monster that I'll be unboxing for the first time. Let's do this, the Wart Dog. Why do I feel like they gave this guy a lot more texture and overall size than Godzilla, Kong, and Skar King? This is a very detailed figure for a 2-inch. First and foremost, the fur. The fur is very obvious. You can see the texture going on here, and there's that gloss to it. Secondly, that is a large mouth. Bro's got that Demogorgon mouth. And you can see the tongue sticking out. Big tongue. And you can see the eyes. And look, the eyes have eyeballs. Oh my goodness, this figure does look pretty solid. I am not gonna lie. The eyeballs actually make this creature feel alive. Wow, see the impact it makes when you put eyeballs and how it can carry emotion? Just do that, Playmates. Do that for the other figures. But let's see, I got Godzilla, Kong, Skar King, and let's put the Wart Dog at the front. Yeah, he's pretty much bigger than he's like the big skull crawler. Obviously, I don't expect this to be scale accurate, but wow, it shows they put more effort into the Wart Dog here. I guess that's fair, considering this is the only version of the Wart Dog Playmates has ever done, so I guess it's fair they gave him a proper treatment. But I actually quite like this. Obviously, there's no articulation at all, but he's got this 4 legs and all his claws are like tucked in, so I guess he's like in a running position. The tail's a bit curled up here as well. It actually looks pretty good. I am not gonna lie, this Wart Dog is pretty sick. Now, as a fun fact, Suko and the Doug 6-inch sets it was actually listed at first as Suko with Wart Dog. So this, I guess they were gonna include this with Suko at first, and I guess they made a last minute change and included Doug instead, which I think was a much better choice. But the Wart Dog here is not bad. Like, I like this. 2 inches isn't a lot to work with. Size and the budget is very limited, as I've said many times. This is all we may need. I don't think we need the bigger figures. This is a good version of the Wart Dog, and I doubt the Wart Dogs here will do much in the movie. They may be in it for like 1 scene, and then that's it. So at least we have a small little product. Better to have one thing than no thing. So out of 10, what would I give this Wart Dog? I would say out of 10, definite 9 out of 10. I don't want to get perfects because everything can be better. So I would say 9 out of 10 for the Wart Dog here. If I had to critique it for something, maybe give some claw marks on the claws. Honestly, from all the ones I'm looking at so far, I actually enjoy this one the most. So the Wart Dog is a definite W for this line of 2-inch figures. So let's keep going. As much as I'd like to keep praising about the Wart Dog, we have 3 more figures to look at. So let's move on to Suko next, which I'm gonna say right off the bat, I think it's gonna have the opposite effect from the Wart Dog. All right, Suko. Now, obviously, my first review that I put out was on Suko and Doug here. This is a 2-inch version of him. I don't know about this one, but let's open it up first before I give any thoughts on it. So, why don't we open it up right now? Let's do this. Okay, Suko, the baby, not even baby, we'll just call him the child. The orangutan child. I don't really like this one. I'm gonna say that right off the bat. This one, I feel it could do so much better. Like, he's doing this pose, it literally looks like he's like cheering or something. Yeah, or I don't know, like size-wise, obviously he's like slightly shorter than Kong, and then slightly shorter than Skar King. Almost as tall as Skar King, actually. But just looking at this, and then I have, of course, the 6-inch one. It's not even 6-inch, that one's smaller, but that one had articulation and that one had detail. This still has somewhat of a detail, but the main problem I want to say is the face. Yeah, at least the 6-inch one had eyeballs. It's a reoccurring problem with all these figures. Eyeballs. Just put eyeballs, and these guys will have a lot more character. He just looks like he is possessed by some ghost or something, some green ghost. You just have green eyes right there. But I guess the texture is okay, and bro's got a belly, that's for sure. I honestly think the Godzilla is worse than this, so I would honestly take this over the Godzilla Evolved Godzilla. Okay, out of 10, what would I give this Suko? I think a 7 would do the trick. Look, there are worse figures. I would say this one's not bad, but it's not perfect. I would say this is mid in between. So that is Suko, which means we'll have to look at his buddy, the legend himself, everyone's favorite, Doug, Titanus Doug. Now the 6-inch Doug was really good, so I hope the 2-inch one here has some of the same quality. And you can see from Suko's very tiny, and Doug is massive here. I think he's bigger than the Wart Dog. So this one's gonna be an interesting one, that's for sure. So let's put Suko away and let's take a look at Doug, because yeah, this is amazing. Package aside, let's open it up and take a look at that bloody legend himself. All right. What do we think, guys? What do we think? I'm curious on what you guys think as well on this Doug. This is a pretty solid figure for 2 inches, I'm not gonna lie. It's texture, look at this. He's a very, very scaly creature, and Playmates is able to do that pretty well for a small scale version of him. They were able to do that for the 6-inch one, but obviously the 6-inch one had articulation. That's a big, important thing here. Now, the face. Is the face bland? Do we have an actually emotion-looking face? Somewhat. You can see there are his eyeballs. It's very tiny, but it's there. Now, let's compare him with the Wart Dog. Obviously, the Wart Dog has the best face. He has eyeballs. Honestly, between him and Suko, I can really say like Doug is a lot better. But you can never go wrong with Doug. What will I give this Doug? Obviously, lack of articulation. It's only one color scheme, but that's all you need. One color. I think is a bit more on the dark grayish side, but keeping one color here is good. There's no mix. So we'll say out of 10, Doug gets a 10 out of 10 for sure. You can never go wrong with Doug. I would say the face could be a little better, but I've been saying that for pretty much all the figures here. So maybe we'll let Doug slide on this one. So a perfect 10 out of 10 for Doug here. You can never go wrong with my boy. That is everything we've opened from the 2-inch line before the spoiler monster. So before we do that, this is for anyone who doesn't want to see the spoiler monster. We're gonna recap here, and then I'll recap again when we have the spoiler monster out. So these are all the figures from the 2-inch line, non-spoiler. I haven't even shown the spoiler monster yet. I can say I think Wart Dog has became my most favorite one. Second one right behind is definitely OG Godzilla here. If you want to collect the whole set, I don't think you'll need to spend a fortune to get the whole set. These are actually okay figures. They'll sit well on the shelf. They're not toys, that's for sure. I don't think you can play with these. These are tiny little figures meant to go on the shelf for display purposes. So, if you don't want to get spoiled, this is where we're gonna call it. Of course, the video itself is not done yet because you got the spoiler monster to look at. But if you don't want to get spoiled, this is where the video ends for you. So thanks so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and I'll see you in the next review. If you want to see the spoiler monster or you just don't care, let's get right into it. Here is Shimo. Now obviously Shimo is one you can also get from the Hollow of Crystals. This is the 4th one. Obviously there was Kong, Skar King, and this one. I obviously have seen this one. I've opened the crystals and I pulled the Shimo out, so I've held it, I've seen what it looks like, but I actually like this one the most. From the 4 crystal figures, Shimo was definitely my favorite. But now, let's take a closer look at him through this official pack. Let's get right into it. And here's the back, if you want to look at it. Let's open it. So, first things first, color scheme. I have praised the color scheme on Shimo very highly for the 6-inch one and the one from the playset. Especially the one from the playset. I was very impressed with the color scheme they went with the playset one. For the 2-inch one here, they went with the default color, of course. Makes sense, smaller budget, limited color space, so they went with the default ones here. And they've done it pretty well. Now, scale-wise, you know, he's just as big as Godzilla, pretty much. But the question is he as big as the Wart Dog? Yeah, he's just as big as Godzilla, but is he as big as the Wart Dog? Sort of. I would say the Wart Dog's more chunkier. Wart Dog's got more muscle going on than Shimo. Shimo's a bit skinny here. Now, is he as big as Doug? Nah, you can't beat Doug. Look at him. Doug is a big boy. Doug will definitely beat Shimo if he needed to. Doug in his full potential, pow, pow, pow. He's gonna defeat Shimo like it's nothing. You can see his eyes quite clearly. You can see the, I guess, I wouldn't say that's a crown. I don't know what I should address it as, but the head colors is actually pretty nice. You can see the blue slowly fading into the white. So I would say a solid job on that. And the tail bits, you can see the blue actually goes on from his dorsal plates all the way to the tail, and it just slowly fades up, but the blue is still there. It just covers the tail very nicely, and of course the bottom is where it is just pure white. This is a pretty well-designed Shimo. This is almost as good as the 6-inch one. Obviously the 6-inch one had more space, so they were able to put more details and more coloring. This was pretty solid for its size. So out of 10, I would give Shimo here a 9 out of 10. Not bad at all, and definitely my favorite from the 4 crystal minifigures. Now, if we compare Shimo, if we put him in the entire set, where does he sit? So here's my official ranking. I'm not gonna rearrange the figures, that takes a lot of time, so I'll just say right here. Number 1 is Wart Dog, number 2 is Shimo, number 3 is Old Godzilla, number 4 is Kong, this Kong, number 5 is Doug, number 6 is Kong with Beast Glove, number 7 is Skar King, 8 Suko, and 9 Godzilla Evolved. I really wish they could do better with Godzilla Evolved. It had potential, but I just feel like they were quite lazy on this part. Suko, just give him some eyeballs and it'll look great. But it goes to show you can make small figures look nice. The Wart Dog is the perfect example of it, and so is Shimo. I would look at these figures as cheap figures that won't have a lot of potential, but remember, $5 figures can be good, and this is a great example. There are some misses, as you clearly saw, but there is some solid ones as well. It's a good set altogether if you don't want to get the Holo Earth crystals and risk gambling for a chance to get the figure you want. Buy the whole set here. You're looking at it. I'm gonna say this once again, even though I already said it for the non-spoiler people. I'm gonna say it one more time. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel for more. And if you want to see the Holo Earth crystals where I opened and got the 4 here, Shimo, Godzilla, Kong, and Skar King, you know, that one's for the fun, that one's for the thrillers. This one's the more in-depth review of those figures. Check that video out. Link in description, end screen, and card. For now, that's it. I'm gonna wrap up here, and we'll see you in the next review. Bye for now.